There are two kinds of homeowners in this world. The ones who quietly live their lives, pay their bills, and mind their business. And the ones who treat an HOA like their personal fiefdom, where they rule with an iron clipboard. Guess which kind Karen was? I had no idea I was about to start a war when I installed my solar panels. To me, it was common sense, lower energy bills, a smaller carbon footprint, and a little self-sufficiency. My house, my roof, my decision. Right? Wrong. It was a crisp Saturday morning, and I was standing in my driveway, admiring the sleek black panels, feeling pretty damn good about myself. Then, like a harbinger of doom, I heard it, the rapid-fire clack of sensible flats on pavement. Like a demon summoned by the scent of homeowner happiness, Karen appeared. Karen, our self-appointed HOA dictator, stormed over, clutching her clipboard like a medieval execution order. She stormed across the street, clipboard locked and loaded, eyes narrowed like I'd personally offended her ancestors. "Excuse me," she barked. I sighed. "Here we go." "Morning, Karen," I said, forcing a polite smile. "Lovely day, isn't it?" She ignored the pleasantries. Her eyes locked onto the panels, nostrils flaring like a bull that just spotted a matador wearing neon. "Did you get approval for these?" I glanced at my solar panels, then back at her. "Approval? You mean from the sun? Because I'm pretty sure it's cool with this." Her lips pressed into a thin, furious line. "From the HOA? Oh, right. That." I scratched my chin. "No, because I didn't need it." Karen's eye twitched. "Everything needs approval." I blinked. "Approval, really? For this?" "Yes." She tapped her perfectly manicured nail against her clipboard. "All exterior modifications must be reviewed and approved." "Ah." I nodded slowly. "See, the thing is, Karen, I didn't need to." Her expression tightened. "Everything needs approval." I crossed my arms. "Not when state law specifically protects homeowners' rights to install renewable energy sources." That threw her for a second. Just a second. Then, like all self-righteous bureaucratic gremlins, she doubled down. "That may be," she said, voice dripping with condescension, "but this community has aesthetic standards. And frankly, those," she gestured dramatically at the solar panels, "are an eyesore." I blinked. "An eyesore?" "Yes," she sniffed. "They disrupt the visual harmony of the neighborhood." I looked around. Across the street, Bob's faded plastic flamingos leaned drunkenly in his patchy lawn. 2 doors down, Linda still had her Christmas decorations up. In April. Next door, Stan's house was painted the exact shade of a rotting avocado. But sure, my solar panels were the real threat. "Karen," I said slowly, "I'm gonna be honest with you. I don't give a damn about your visual harmony." Her eyes bulged like I just kicked her emotional support clipboard out of her hands. She recovered fast. "You'll be receiving a formal notice soon," she huffed. Then she spun on her heel and marched away. I watched her go, shaking my head. That was easier than I expected. Little did I know, this was just the beginning. If I thought Karen was going to back down quietly, I was tragically naive. The next morning, I stepped outside to grab my mail and immediately noticed something was off. A bright red envelope was taped to my front door. "Violation notice, immediate action required. Your solar panels violate the neighborhood's aesthetic integrity. You must remove them within 7 days or face fines of $250 per day. Karen W., HOA President." I let out a slow, deep breath. Oh, she's really doing this. I turned the letter over, checking for anything, that resembled a legal justification. But all I saw was vague HOA jargon about community harmony and protecting property values. Total BS. Before I could fully process my next move, I heard the familiar sound of power-walking sneakers on pavement. Karen. She was already approaching from across the street, a smug look on her face that made me want to install 10 more solar panels out of pure spite. "I see you got my notice," she said, folding her arms. "Oh, I got it," I said, ripping it in half in front of her. "But I think you'll find that state law trumps your little rulebook." Her eye twitched. "The HOA has the right to enforce reasonable aesthetic guidelines." "Reasonable?" I cut her off. Karen, there's a guy down the street with a fence made entirely out of old hubcaps. But I'm the problem. That's different, she snapped. That was grandfathered in. So we were making up rules now. Well, unfortunately for you, I said, pulling a neatly printed legal document from my pocket. The state has a little something called the Solar Rights Act, which says that HOAs can't prohibit solar installations outright. So, unless you have a legitimate safety concern. They're ugly, I grinned. Not a safety concern. Karen's face twitched, and I could see the gears in her brain grinding, trying to figure out a way around this. Then, without another word, she spun on her heel and stormed off. I should have felt victorious. Instead, I felt uneasy, because Karen wasn't the type to accept reality. She was the type to weaponize paperwork and bureaucracy like a petty warlord, and I had a sinking feeling this wasn't over. I was right to be uneasy. By Tuesday morning, Karen had moved past threats and into full-blown sabotage. It started with a letter from the city zoning office, claiming that my solar panels were in violation of municipal codes. Notice of code violation. A formal complaint has been filed regarding your recent modifications. An investigation is pending. Office of Zoning and Compliance. Oh, for foo. I stormed back into my house, fired up my laptop, and started digging through city ordinances. Took me less than 10 minutes to confirm what I already knew. Karen was full of crap. My permits? Perfectly legal. Zoning restrictions? Didn't apply to rooftop solar. Inspection requirements? Already passed. Karen had straight up lied to the city just to make my life miserable. I wasn't even done fuming when my doorbell rang. I opened it to find a gruff-looking city inspector, clipboard in hand, looking thoroughly annoyed. You the solar guy? He asked. I sighed. Yeah. Let me guess. Karen called you? His jaw tightened. Let's just say, this isn't the first time we've had concerns from the HOA about things that turn out to be non-issues. I stepped aside. Come on in. Let's clear this up. It took him all of 5 minutes to go over my permits, inspect the installation, and conclude that, shockingly, everything was up to code. She really wasted city resources for this? I asked as he packed up his clipboard. Wouldn't be the first time, he muttered. Then, with a conspiratorial smirk, he added, want some advice? I raised an eyebrow. Always. She's playing dirty, he said, lowering his voice slightly. Might be time to return the favor. Now that caught my attention. I'm listening. I took the inspector's advice to heart. Karen wanted to play dirty? Fine. Let's get filthy. First, I did some digging of my own. If Karen was going to abuse bureaucracy, then I was going to weaponize it right back at her. A few late nights and some very enlightening public records requests later, I hit gold. Turns out, our dear HOA president had been ignoring quite a few of her own rules. The HOA required quarterly financial reports to be shared with homeowners. Karen hadn't filed one in over a year. HOA board elections were supposed to be held annually. Karen had conveniently forgotten to schedule them. Twice. And the best part? HOA leadership wasn't supposed to make unilateral financial decisions. But Karen had been approving fines and fees without a board vote. This wasn't just HOA pettiness anymore. It was a massive violation of the HOA charter itself, and I was about to blow it wide open. The next HOA meeting was on Thursday night. The usual board residents and Karen loyalists shuffled in, expecting another dull evening of rule enforcement. They were not ready for what I had planned. I walked in with a fat stack of paperwork and a smile that said, I'm about to ruin Karen's entire month. Karen barely acknowledged me as she called the meeting to order. We have several agenda items, she began, including some outstanding violation fees that need to be addressed. I stood up. Actually, I said, loudly enough for the whole room to hear, I'd like to discuss a few violations of our own. Specifically, violations of HOA governance laws. Karen froze. The room went dead silent. I slapped my stack of papers down on the table like a lawyer about to destroy a witness on the stand. For starters, I continued, flipping through my notes. Why hasn't the HOA filed its required financial disclosures for the past year? Karen blinked rapidly, clearly trying to process what the hell was happening. That's not relevant to... Oh, but it is relevant. I cut in, my voice dripping with mock innocence. Just like how we're supposed to have yearly board elections. You know, the ones we somehow haven't had in 2 years? A few people in the room started muttering to each other. Karen's face went pale. That's not. And I went on, grinning now, let's talk about the fines you've been approving without a board vote. Because, according to our own HOA bylaws, those are illegal. Karen's mouth opened and closed, but no words came out. The muttering turned into full-blown whispering. Then someone stood up. I second this discussion, said Mrs. Patel, arms crossed. I want answers. Me too, added Mike. The guy Karen once fined for his truck being too large. Karen looked around, realizing she was losing control. I don't see why we're discussing this now, she stammered. This isn't on the agenda. I grinned. You're right. Maybe we should add it to the next agenda. Oh wait, we can't because you've been blocking any homeowner-submitted topics. She gulped. The room erupted. People were pissed. By the time the yelling died down, a motion had been made to audit the HOA's finances. Another motion was made to hold a special election for new leadership. Karen was visibly sweating. I think we should adjourn, she tried. Nope, someone shot back. We're voting tonight, and just like that, Karen got booted from her own HOA. It was beautiful. After Karen was kicked out, her HOA fines and nonsense rules were reversed. And the best part? With her dictatorship officially dead, multiple homeowners started installing solar panels, just to spite her. Karen, now just another powerless resident, had to watch as her once harmonious neighborhood embraced renewable energy like never before. And me? I made sure to personally invite the new HOA board to my housewarming party. Because if Karen ever tried to mess with me again, I'd be ready, with even more solar-powered nonsense.